A lot of people have dreams of getting a piece of land, moving out to the country. They have ideas of the peace, the freedom, the lifestyle it will bring them. But when they actually do it, they end up getting overwhelmed when they discover how much work owning a piece of property can be. But after owning a lot of property, my experience is it doesn't have to be that way. In my experience, the endless chores and maintenance doesn't come from owning the land. It comes from what a lot of people decide to do to their land. I'm going to show you how I am able to own a lot of land, manage it myself, and still have a lot of time left over to flap my jaw in front of a camera. That's why I have to come up with subjects like this to make videos about, or make videos about swatting at mosquitoes with sticks, because I just don't have that many chores I have to do around here. This video was inspired by a conversation I had with someone recently. He said he just has a 1/3 acre lot in town. He just can't imagine how overwhelming it must be for me to have to manage multiple pieces of large property in different areas. To that, I presented the idea to him. Your 1/3 acre lot might be more maintenance than all of my large pieces of land. That is a bold statement to make, and I will qualify that as we get into this, but in some ways, it might be true. To describe the traditional high maintenance land, I'll give you a couple examples I'm very familiar with. I remember one of my grandfathers could not wait to retire. He had all these plans. He wanted to go fishing, he wanted to travel, had all these things he wanted to do when he was going to retire. That's a mouthful. Had a hard time spitting that one out. Anyway, he couldn't wait to retire. But once he finally retired, he realized he still had a part-time job. That was taking care of his rural home on, 35 acres. He enjoyed working on the place, but in a lot of ways it kept him from doing some of the things he wanted to do. I can remember him saying several times, "I'll tell you what, owning a piece of property sure is a lot of work." The correction I would make to that is, owning a property like yours is a lot of work. The next example is the place I grew up on. Some channel viewers might assume that I grew up out in the woods. In some ways I did, just because I was in the woods so much. But as with a lot of people who work out in the woods, we didn't live in the woods, we lived in town and commuted to the woods. We had about a 2/3 of an acre lot in the suburbs. For only being 2/3 of an acre, that little lot was a lot of work. I know it was a lot of work because as a kid, I ended up doing a lot of the work. I've heard rumors that's one of the main reasons to have kids, to have somebody to do the work. But this property, much bigger than either of those examples, doesn't have nearly the amount of chores or maintenance that even that 2/3 acre lot had. At the place where I grew up, before someone decided to develop that land, it was probably originally some variation of oak, pine, savanna, or woodland. Oak trees, pine trees, likely much bigger than these ones, but the ground might have been something similar to this. The ground covered with many types of native grasses and other plants. That ecosystem was probably there for thousands of years. It endured wildfire, droughts, floods, heat waves, cold waves. Are cold waves even a thing? Cold snaps, that's what it is. Major soil building events. It was able to survive everything that nature threw at it for thousands of years. That's what ecosystems are typically set up to do, to endure or to be able to recover after the disasters and the disturbances nature likes to throw around every once in a while. The ones that can't do that end up dying out. The ones that can end up being the ones that survive and thrive. That's what we have in most ecosystems. We have the ones that can survive and thrive through everything nature has been able to throw at it. A lot of times what we human types do, as soon as we get control of a piece of land, we want to take the nature that was there, we want to scrape that off, put something else there that wouldn't normally be there. Of course, there can be a lot of benefits from doing that. A lot of benefits from doing that. I liked growing up in a house, having a nice yard. It's nice to be able to go to the grocery store and buy food that was grown on a farm where nature was scraped off and replaced with something else. I'm not trying to say that's wrong. To a degree, it's necessary to maintain our current society. But if your plans are to scrape off the nature that was there to replace it with something else, just be aware you're likely entering yourself into a long-term battle against nature that has been in that spot for thousands of years because it was fully equipped to recover from any disaster or disturbance that was ever thrown at it. Congratulations, you just made yourself that disturbance that it will now be fighting relentlessly to recover from. What that will probably look like for you is a whole lot of work and ongoing chores and maintenance. What you'll probably discover is nature is a very formidable foe. It's persistent. It has nothing better to do than try to survive. If your plans for your property are to scrape off nature to replace it with something different, just keep that in mind. Do you remember that time when you were at that vacation resort and you met all those farmers there? Yeah, me either. I can't remember that ever happening. What do farmers do? They scrape all the nature off their land so they can plant some kind of a crop there. I wonder if there's a correlation between that and why I don't remember ever seeing farmers at vacation resorts. No disrespect to farmers. I think I can speak for all of us when I say, thank you, farmers. We very much greatly appreciate this battle you have taken on to essentially keep the rest of us alive. The point is, it's a whole lot of work. I remember when my grandfather was growing hay. There were a lot of times he wanted to go do something in June or July, but he couldn't because he had to stay home and cut hay. Not to mention the rest of the year trying to grow the hay. Plowing and planting in the fall, hoping the turkeys don't come through and eat a lot of the seed. Getting that first cutting, then watering, keeping the fields irrigated through the summer to get the second cutting. I think that's how it worked. I was pretty young when he was growing alfalfa. Keeping all the equipment maintained and running. Hay balers aren't exactly maintenance free. He eventually quit that because it was just too much work, or at least too much work to justify what little he was getting out of it. Then he started working on the landscaping around their home. He created a beautiful yard, but what he also did was created a lot of ongoing chores and maintenance he had to do to keep that maintained. We all appreciated it. It gave the family a beautiful place to go visit them in our free time, but Grandpa sure didn't have much free time. One of the reasons I am able to maintain all the land I have, still have enough time left over to run this Getting Out of Control YouTube channel, is I did not scrape the nature off my land and try to replace it with something else. Now I have to pause for a minute, wait for the wind to die down so I can talk without it messing with my microphone. This is the way it works on YouTube. Now I think the wind has died down enough. If you notice, most of the projects I do not involve removing nature, then building something or replacing it with something that wouldn't normally be there. Most of the projects I do not involve creating ongoing chores and maintenance for myself. Most of the projects I do are usually helping nature along in the direction it's already going. I can do the work, do some improvements, then let nature take over from there for the next few decades. People commonly ask me, why don't I get one of these tractors and one of those tractors and some of these implements and some of these tools for maintaining my land, the kind of things that other landowners and other YouTubers have. As fun as a lot of these toys might be to have, what I see a lot of people using them for is to maintain their high maintenance land that has been altered from what would naturally be there. As much fun as a lot of those things would be, I just don't have much need for them to alter or maintain my land. Because of that, I don't have to maintain a 4,000 square foot shop to keep all of that equipment in, and I don't have to build a second 4,000 square foot shop to keep all the tools and have a space to maintain all that equipment in. I do have some logging equipment I can use to take out excess trees sometimes, but that's not something I have to do like a chore. It's something I can do when I want to improve the place, and it can even generate income. It's not something I have to do on a regular basis, like all the things you'd have to do on a farm, or if you had livestock, or if you have a yard where you have to mow it, keep it watered, keep the weeds out. You have chores to do on a regular basis, or the whole thing will deteriorate. The way I see a lot of people working on their land, most of the work they're doing is not actually improving the land. It's doing these constant chores they have to do to maintain the status quo. They may have already done some things to improve the land, or they might do more, but those things they do are going to require those ongoing chores just to maintain the status quo. Since I don't have those ongoing chores out here to do, most of the work I do is focused on improving the forest, creating more of a natural forest that will take care of itself. I do the work once, then I can just walk away from it, leave it alone, let nature do the maintenance. Much of this property and my other properties I haven't even seen in years because I haven't altered the land into something I need to maintain. But with all that said, I do have a couple exceptions to that. I do have a couple things I do have to maintain. One of them are my roads. Keeping the water bars maintained so the roads don't wash out. Going around occasionally checking the culverts, making sure they're not going to plug up and wash out the road. Roads have always been by far the highest maintenance features on all my land. And why is that? Well, what did we do here? We scraped nature away so we can have something here that we want that nature wouldn't typically have here. Whenever we scrape nature off the land, what we're usually doing is creating a lot of work for ourselves, a lot of ongoing maintenance. But what would be the alternative to having roads? Until we all start using flying vehicles, I think the alternative would be to have to hike in and out of here, pack things in and out. That sounds like a whole lot more work than it is to maintain the roads. I think I'm going to stick with having my roads. I like my roads. The point of this video is not that we all have to be purists, never alter nature, never scrape away nature to do something else, because sometimes we have to do what we have to do in order to do what we have to do, in order to make the land useful for whatever we need to use it for. But we can still be mindful that sometimes we do what we think we need to do when we actually don't need to be doing that, and by doing that, we're just creating a lot of extra work for ourselves. Sometimes leaving your land more natural may not be what you ideally had in mind for the place, or it might not be as visually ideal as what you had in mind, but a lot of times it can save you a whole lot of work. The other routine maintenance thing I have to do on the place that doesn't actually improve the place, it just maintains the status quo, is mow the vegetation around my infrastructure. I mostly do that to create defensible space for wildfire. It's getting to be close to time to do that now, but I only have to mow this once a year. How do I get away with only doing it once a year? Of course, by working with nature instead of working against nature. I'm starting to sound like a hippie, but this could be a video in itself. It's getting close to time to do that. Maybe we'll explain it in that video. I've extended that defensible space out about 100 yards from my structures, all the way over here, all the way up to the woods. I am going to have to cut all this brush and junk that's trying to come back every year. They are native, but they don't like being cut back every year. Eventually, the native grasses and forbs that don't mind being cut back every year will outcompete them, with some nicely spaced white oak to provide all kinds of benefits. A lot of people tell me I should get goats to help keep down the brush and vegetation. But if I got goats, then I'd have to have goats. If I have goats to deal with, then I'd have to deal with goats. I don't want to have to deal with goats. I like goats. Goats are great. I just don't want to have goats. When they recommend goats, I think they have the idea the goats will eat the brush, they'll do the work, then I won't have to do the work. That will save me from having to do the work. Yeah, but what about taking care of the goats? Who's going to take care of the goats? That's probably going to be me. With my brush cutting tool, I can use that once a year, then put it in the shed for the rest of the year until I'm ready to use it again. Goats don't want to be put in the shed and left there for the rest of the year until I want to use them again. Goats want to be alive all year long. If they had any idea how little time I spend every year mowing brush and vegetation and how much work it would be taking care of the goats, they probably wouldn't be so quick to recommend I get goats. Having livestock can be a good source of food, but it's also a huge source of ongoing chores and maintenance. And I really enjoy my manure-free lifestyle. If I want to have animals as a source of food, I think I'm better off spending a little time now and again working on wildlife habitat enhancement projects, increase the carrying capacity of the land, use that as a source of food. Those animals are fully equipped to be here on their own. Nature takes care of them, and their manure just gets scattered around wherever they put it, and I don't have to deal with it. I never was a big fan of that stuff. Sometimes I think it would be nice to have chickens though. The eggs would be good. Chickens are cool. Someday if I decide I do want to live here full time when I grow up, maybe I'll get chickens. But I'm not going to fool myself into thinking they're going to save me work. I get all kinds of suggestions for the tractors and equipment I should buy to keep this place mowed. But I think that's a common trap people fall into. They've been told they need to go buy this expensive equipment to save them work. But they forget to calculate the amount of work they're going to have to do at their job or however they make money to pay for that equipment. Since I have this place set up to where I only have to mow it once, which takes maybe 1 day per year to do, it's easier for me just to mow it by hand than it would be to go do all the work to buy the equipment to save me work to mow it with that. If I had to mow this place once a week or every 2 weeks, or even once a month, like a lot of people have their property set up to do, that would be a different story. If I was in a part of the country where it actually rains in the summer and the grass continues to grow through the summer, that might also be another story. In that case, getting a mowing tractor might make sense. But before you decide to get something that's going to save you work, don't forget to calculate the amount of work you're going to have to do to pay for it. I wonder why the equipment and tractor companies aren't contacting me to promote their products like they do the other YouTube channels. If you do the calculation and it works out in your favor, in that case, it might make sense to buy whatever it is. You can also skew the numbers by factoring in, but I want one. Sometimes, but I want one is a good enough reason in itself. Maybe someday I will show up one day with some fancy mowing tractor because I want one. But at this point, I really don't need one. The same goes for having livestock. In some cases, having the livestock may save you work, but in a lot of cases, the livestock's probably going to be more work than they're going to save you. A lot of times, people get livestock because they just want to have it. Sometimes, because I want it is a good enough reason. The reality is, most of the things we do in life, we do it because I want it. Then we come up with reasons to justify doing what we want to do. And that's okay. Earlier I used my grandfather and his high maintenance yard as an example, but at that point he was retired. It gave him something to do. He enjoyed working on his yard. It's part of what kept him going. Sometimes creating more work for yourself is not always a bad thing. The purpose of this video is not to tell you, don't do all these things, do it my way instead. The purpose is more to, what is the purpose of it? That is a really good question. While I think about that, let's go look at one more thing around here that is a little bit high maintenance. That brings us to the garden. Don't look at it very closely, it's ugly right now. I think this weekend I'm going to do some work on it, fix it up some. I don't live under any kind of delusion that growing my own vegetables is going to save me any time or money. The reason I have a garden is because I want one. But for a garden, this is an extremely low maintenance garden. I have this set up to where I do a little bit of work once in a while. I can just walk away from this, leave it all summer, and it'll be just fine. It's only May and this thing's getting out of control. It's been feeding me all winter. I've had some requests to do garden videos. I think this probably needs to have a video in itself. We'll do this one another time. As you go through life, if you observe long enough, you might notice there are two types of work. There's the type of work that you have to do over and over and over again. It's not the kind of work that actually improves what you're working on. It's just work you have to do to maintain the status quo. Then there's the type of work where you do the work and it actually improves what you're working on, whether it be your land, your job, yourself, and continues to provide you with ongoing lasting benefits because you did the work. The one kind of work is where you keep doing the same thing over and over again. You're just spinning your wheels, not getting anywhere. The other kind of work, you do the work, you spin your wheels, and it propels you forward. Both of those types of work are important. We all have tasks in life we have to keep doing over and over. If we stop brushing our teeth every day, we're going to have problems. But if we fill our lives with these tasks we have to do over and over, we don't have room for the jobs in our life that propel us forward. So I think we need to have more of a balance, have fewer of those tasks we have to do over and over, so we can have more of a balance and we can move forward in life. I could go on and on about that while I continue to try to think about what the point of this video is, but trying to come up with a point for this video may be pointless and a lost cause. So we'll just cut our losses here and call it the end.